We are now ready to move on to the next session, which is Spotlight on Remote Monitoring, in which we'll hear from Mr. Robert Whetstone. He is Vice President, Martin Engineering. Welcome to the conference, sir. I will briefly introduce you to the delegates, and then we'll have your presentation. Mr. Robert Whetstone is Vice President at Martin Engineering. He is responsible for the company's Europe, Middle East, Africa, and India region businesses. And Mr. Whetstone had been a fellow of the Institute of Querying and is also a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, Manufacturing and Commerce. Welcome to the conference, Mr. Robert. You can start with your presentation. We have around 20-25 minutes for the presentation and another 5 minutes for the Q&A. I request the delegates to please type in the questions for Mr. Robert while he's presenting.
So firstly, thank you very much for allowing me to present. It's a great honor to be presenting to you all the way from the United Kingdom to you all in India. So thank you very much for giving me that opportunity. Martin Engineering, as we talk about, well, I'm going to be talking about the challenges of creating a win-win business model with something that is becoming increasingly large in our life, namely the Internet of Things solutions. Martin has been around for 75 years. It's one of the leaders in the handling of bulk materials, and has always based its sort of model on being innovative and being in the forefront of changes. So in recent years, we've been exploring remote technology, well established in some parts of our lives, but only emerging in our sector now. Our work has brought us to the launch of something we called N2, a system which allows remote monitoring of conveyor belt blades, what we've sort of called a kind of fitness tracker for your belt cleaners, similar to your Fitbit or some other gadget that now you see on people's wrists. The N2 system for conveyor cleaners involves a PI, a position indicator, fitted to the belt cleaner mainframe. You can see that on the slide there. A central gateway which receives data from the PIs and sends it to the cloud, and an app on your mobile phone which draws on that data to show the performance of the belt cleaners, predicting when servicing is needed and flagging when things aren't running smoothly. We've also developed a dashboard for larger companies who may have multiple, which is web accessed, which is for clients who are customers who may have multiple sites where they're looking at benchmarking performance as well. But Tate's presentation is not meant to be about N2. I'm not going to give you a sales pitch on the product. It's about our journey in bringing this technology to market. And I hope you find the talk interesting and have plenty of questions at the end. So let's firstly sort of make sure we all understand what the Internet of Things is. Well, the Internet of Things is best defined as the interconnection via the Internet of electronic devices integrated into everyday objects that enables them to send and receive data over a wireless network without human intervention. Many of us are familiar with examples of such technology in our homes, our central heating systems maybe, if you live in the UK, key finders, and Internet of Things technology is already in use in high-end manufacturing, distribution, etc. The most obvious example is logistics tracking. This kind of smart tech is revolutionizing many aspects of life and business. Yet despite potentially game-changing improvements, the Internet of Things has been slow to be developed and adopted in sectors like materials processing. A recent report by McKinsey said that the cement industry was in the bottom 3 of adopting digitalization, surrounded by sort of surrounded by agriculture as the other area. So the materials industry has a long way to go in this particular area. We looked at this and we believe this is due to the perceived lack of a win-win business model. There's got to be a business case for doing this. People have to understand why they're doing it, not just that it's the next best and greatest things. And materials processing is, and I've been in it for many years, a relatively conservative industry. So as we've worked on our own solution, we've been asking ourselves why. We first started with actual pain points being experienced by our people in the sector of the industry. If you're going to give somebody a painkiller or a vitamin, you need to know what the pain is you're trying to solve. We obviously work closely with our customers and have a good understanding, but we're also fortunate that many Martin colleagues, such as myself, have experience as operations managers in mining and quarrying. History suggests that many technological solutions falter because, firstly, they do not address real pain points. Developers fail to explain how they address pain points. Or thirdly, they introduce new pain points. And lastly, they do all of the above. So it was therefore critical for us to challenge ourselves to be certain that the technology available was truly addressing the pain points and not merely hiding the pain or shifting it elsewhere. So we asked the question then, what's the return on my investment? Now, we already know that belt cleaning systems control spillage and carryback, they reduce downtime, they save time on cleanups, they save money on maintenance, worn rollers, tail pulleys, they help to improve health and safety as well. And over time, we know that our products deliver return in all these areas. But we also realize that the belt cleaners themselves need managing. And actually, it's the managing of the variables that actually are the biggest challenge. And those variables range from initial installation, regular tensioning and servicing, replacement in a timely manner, on top of things like changeability in the material properties, condition of the belt, condition and age of the processing plant. Remember, we're dealing with materials that are naturally formed. They change the deeper or the further you go away from the geological strata. So nothing stays the same. There's lots of variables. And all of these things must be understood and monitored, to maximize the primary benefits of having belt cleaners installed in the first place. Our own technicians and approved contractors probably know this inside out, but they can't be everywhere, particularly with restrictions in traveling. And accommodating regular site visits can be problematic at busy production plants. We all know that challenge of, can I shut the plant down because I'm trying to meet my production target? So equally, in-house maintenance teams are stretched, and inspecting belt cleaners on the off chance that some of them might be in need of a service may not be at the top of the list of priorities until something goes wrong. So looking after your belt cleaners may be perceived as an extra burden, a lot of wasted time, diluting the return on your investment. And the point is, it isn't and it doesn't. So we were looking for an inexpensive way to remove the perception of extra burden and instead to be able to predict when servicing may be required, reduce the amount of wasted time. We have people walking around long, big sites simply inspecting a cleaner. So we needed to design a solution that was simple, cost-effective for both us as a supplier and our customers. And this allows the win-win to be unlocked. What's this data telling me was the next question we asked. So no matter how impressive the technology may be, when you're in the midst of developing an innovation, it's easy to forget that the outcome is what that matters. The only thing IoT technology can really deliver is data, and data alone does not achieve a better outcome. In fact, increasingly, we see people running around with huge, great lakes of data on the basis that if I have lots of data, I can do something with it, and then they don't know what to do with it. Data is wasted if you do not do anything with it. So while the age-old mantra, if you can measure it, you can manage it, is true, the data provided needs to support clear decision-making, not prompt new questions or debates, not create what people call paralysis by analysis. When I was working for Lafarge over a decade ago, we started using telematics for mobile plant, mobile equipment, rock trucks, excavators. The data was interesting, but there was too much of it. And it required analysis and interpretation and a debate to actually deliver an outcome. And the data was historical, not really real time. It was probably more useful to the supplier than it was to the customer. It needed to lead to clear and immediate actions to maximize performance, efficiency, and productivity. In fact, we can become obsessed by data, overanalyzing it rather than acting upon it. Yet it's the interpretation of data that leads to useful information and ultimately action. So understanding this challenge, we've invested time ensuring that the data from N2 is not only in real time, but it's automatically analyzed, interpreted, and presented in a way which makes decisions straightforward. Hence, the N2 mobile app gives you a clear series of charts with actionable information. Our approach it being, if you can measure it more easily, you can manage it more easily. And that way you develop a win-win supplier for the customer. We wanted to use data to create information that meant you actually did something. Because unless you do something, you don't change the paradigm. And that brings us to the next challenge. Change. The pandemic has, I think, shown us all that the world has changed dramatically in the way we've had to live over the last 18 months. We learned that the fact that companies may need to change can be a real barrier to adopting technological innovations. In fact, change happens sometimes all too late. It's a reaction to events rather than a proactive decision to be prepared for the future. And we see this comes in, but we see change we can see change being a real barrier to adopting technological innovations. And this comes, in our view, from two main forms. Firstly, business processes and established ways of working can often be rigid and ingrained over decades. How many times have we looked at something and said, why have I been doing that? It's because it becomes a habit. Secondly, people, and this is may need to change what they do. There can be huge resistance of people to change the daily practices they're familiar with. So actually, introducing any technology is really an exercise in change management. The easy bit is the technical and mechanical installation. The trick is to ensure that the benefit of change is understood and that the change itself must be less onerous than the current way of working. In our case, the technology virtually eliminates the need for belt physical inspections. On a large quarry plant, that could save hours each week, not to mention the reduced exposure to moving belts. So, for example, one area that we work to understand is the comparison between the effects of installing N2 with the effects of not installing N2, both in terms of business benefit and also benefit to individuals. If you know when the blade needs replacing, if you know when it needs tensioning, if you know when there is an issue there, you're not just going there to see if it's possible, you're actually reducing time. And in our first test site in the UK, and the customer has now adopted this across all of its sites, so we have over 50 position indicators operating, they have estimated they've reduced their time spent inspecting and maintaining their belt cleaners by 75%. So this has allowed us to build an even more compelling case to convince people that change, albeit modest, is worth it. For individuals, if people are required to learn something new without understanding why they're being asked to change, some degree of resistance is likely, and failure of the innovation is probable. Resistance can also be diminished and overcome if the new technology is easy to use, designed to be intuitive and even enjoyable. If it can change this, then people adapt to change easily. So an integral part of the N2 system is the Martin app that clearly shows blade life and only sends a notification when servicing is needed, a win for the user. Everyone carries an iPhone. Everyone carries an Android phone or a Samsung. Apps are a part of our everyday life, so use existing technology. But we also made it robust. I was a soldier for many years. Oh, not many years, well, 6. We always used to have a test that if a soldier could break it, then we needed to redesign it. So it's tough, it's durable, it's simple. We use stainless steel where possible. We make sure that the technical aspects are protected. So it is a fitness tracker for your belt cleaner. And we've also looked at the real key success, address the real pain points here. And as you can see, that's a review of them. Address the real pain points, make it affordable, make it scalable, focus on innovation, not data, make it actionable, align with customers' own change management plans. But what else must we upgrade? From the outset, we knew that no company could justify making changes or upgrades to accommodate a new device like N2. Even a small barrier like this could mean the difference between adoption and non-adoption. So it was essential that the N2 position indicator was able to be retrofitted without additional upgrades to the plant. This is designed to apply not only to existing Martin Engineering belt cleaners, but where possible, the belt cleaner mainframes of other suppliers too. Our device is also designed to be scalable across processing plants of all sizes, types, and ages without incurring additional costs. So we designed the system to work with any number of conveyors on any plant. Hand in hand comes with this the ease of installation. Once our central gateway is installed and powered up, each N2 position indicator can be fitted and calibrated and paired with the gateway in just a few minutes. All the clever stuff, the data analysis and the feed to the app is all done off-site, so no one needs to be an IT expert to make N2 work, much to the relief of everyone who's seen the system in action. We even manage for you, with our trusted partners, the issues of SIM cards and making sure that you can connect through the various protocols. So in summary, we've taken the views of material producers and approached the market with a change management mindset. We tried to take away the potential barriers that might expect to encounter with this introduction of new technology. Instead, we've tried to address each new potential challenge with a solution, and this is only going to enhance performance like a fitness tracker. Of course, the proof of the pudding, as we say, is in the eating. And whilst the trials of N2 in the past year have been a huge success, it will ultimately be uptake of this system that will show whether we have got it right. We currently have it operating in 8 countries to date, ranging from the United States, Brazil, UK, Italy, France, Turkey, and Germany. And I'll talk about India in a minute. As I said at the start, We're on a journey. And in some ways, it's a gamble after years of investment in product development. But the past year has taught us all that remote working can not only be done, but it can be done very effectively and efficiently, and given the right technology. We do believe that we've the right technology and are at the forefront of this movement towards remote monitoring, condition-based maintenance, though we're not the only supplier bringing IoT innovations to this market. So the remote revolution is here to stay. And if our experience is anything to go by, it would be well worth working together to overcome the challenges and getting on board. My last slide, I'd just like to sort of give people a view of what's happened in India. We've developed this product globally. I mean, we haven't just sat there in America or Europe designing this. It has been very much a team effort. We always saw this as a global product. We now have 2 site trials going on in India, which have been operating since the beginning of of July. You can see the gateway there installed. You can see the position indicators, and you can see the app working in a site in India. We've also worked very heavily with UL Labs in Bangalore, and also worked with another Indian partner, CSG, in terms of certification and optimizing the design of this. So this is truly a global product, reflecting the diversity of the region that I have the privilege to lead. We believe really shows our mantra of how we really can all be better together. Thank you very much for allowing me the time to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Robert, for a very interesting presentation. Before we move on to the questions, I would just like to add a few more words to introduce Mr. Robert, which has just been shared by my team. So Mr. Robert started his career in the British Army before taking up the leadership roles in retail and then in business services. He joined Lafarge UK in 1998, where he held a number of senior positions, including managing director for aggregates. And later in 2010, he moved to Lafarge North America with responsibility for the aggregates business in the Eastern USA, covering the Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic, Georgia, and Caribbean. Then remaining in the US, he then took up a new role with the engineering services firm Babcock International to lead their mining and construction business in North America, before setting up his own consultancy supporting businesses in US and across Europe. He was also appointed VP at EMEAI at Martin Engineering in March 2017. We are really happy to have Mr. Robert with us today. So I'll just take the questions now. The first question is, if you offer a service via your cloud, who is the owner of the data obtained, you or the customer?
Very good. That's always the first question that's asked about this. The customer will have all access to his own data, and he will be given his data. But data in itself is one thing. But yeah, the customer will effectively have access and ownership of all his data. And we separate it as well. We have protocols in place as well, so that all data is separated by customer. So, for example, our provider is Amazon Web Services. For India, we're using a data center in Mumbai. For the Middle East, we use a data center in Bahrain. For the UK, we use one in the UK. And for the European Union, we use one in Ireland. So we've taken into account all of the different governmental restrictions and rules on the sharing of data. So we're complying with the law. But yes, the data belongs to the customer. We use the data because one of the useful things for us is we do, when we set it up, look at what type of material it is. So we can build, to really get good information, you need a lot of data. to create lots more valid information. So we do look at things like, well, do certain belt cleaners perform better on a limestone or an iron ore or whatever?
Okay. So I'll just take the next question. So how many of such smart systems are currently in operation?
Right, we have, let me just go on the latest count. We actually have 900 PIs currently operating. And we then, and that will increase during 20, so I believe by the end of 21, we'll have over 1,000 position indicators operating globally. And we will by that stage have about probably 60 gateways in operation as well. And as I said, we're operating through data centers, not only in my region, in the four I mentioned, but also data centers in the US as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the next question is like a comment and a question together. So the delegate says you currently said digitalization in core industry, that is cement, power, mining, steel is the way behind. And some of the industries implementing, but main problem supplier having certain technology, but adaptation from core industry is a challenge. So what are your views? How can supplier overcome these? And all MNCs are struggling with this issue.
Can I answer that? Can I just try? I'm struggling to ask that question, understand that question. So can you repeat that, please?
So he's saying basically the digitalization is happening across the industry, but adaptation is a problem.
Yeah, adoption. Yeah, and I think that's because, firstly, when we've spoken to customers, some people view technology as another thing to go wrong. And I think that what we are aware of is that there isn't necessarily in our industries, and particularly maybe in India and coal, and I think that's the same in other markets of coal, because coal's been around for a long time, is there isn't a reward for innovating. Okay, people go to work to earn money to feed their family, and then they hopefully will retain their job. Therefore, adopting new technology is a risk to people. Because if it fails, they then look bad. And that's why we spent a lot of time trying to develop products that were easy to do. We showed it would work. And the other bit we always do with everyone is a test to build their awareness in the technology and how it can be used. Okay.
Right. So the next question is, are you selling the device and data separately?
No, we don't actually. It all comes together, and we call it a service. So in terms of the device, all there is an installation fee that we charge. But that's just because part of the process is we'll come and do a site survey to make sure that you've got the proper signal where we need to position the gateway. So there is some work setting it up for the first time to make it work. But otherwise, there'll be an installation fee, and then there will be a charge for data. Well, not data, it's called a subscription, which will be at most, I'm not sure, but we're roughly around $300 a year, so per site. So all you'll pay is $300 US dollars roughly a year per site. For that, and that just allows us to upgrade and keep the apps working, because obviously this is something that requires repeat work. So that's all that will pay for. We've designed the gateway so you can get up to probably about 200 to 300 position indicators per gateway, depending on the size of the site. The position indicators, and we tested this actually in India, where we did a lot of the performance improvement. It's about it communicates well over about 1.5 kilometers. so you can see that we've done it, so you don't need lots and lots of gateways.
Okay.
And there's a lot of room in the gateway to add additional sensors should you so wish on other products.
Right.
So it's very scalable for minimal investment.
So the next question is, what will be the approximate price of an IoT when used on a common application?
Effectively, what we say at the moment is, as an IoT, and again, the Indian team will be able to supply more accurate prices for the Indian market. But in terms generally, it's about $150 per PI to install, and it's about $2,000 per gateway to install. When we've looked at this before, you're probably talking a decent site of around 50 of these PIs being installed would probably be around $7,000 investment. But again, there will be specific prices for the Indian market, because I said at the end of the day, it is an installation fee, not a product fee. You don't buy the product. You don't buy the device.
Right.
You buy the service.
So the next question is, for what duration the data can be stored in real-time monitoring device or system? So basically, for what duration the data can be stored?
Well, it's real time, so the data will be constantly stored back in the data centers in terms of your so that will be just stored there. But in terms of the real-time device, that's real time. You're seeing what's happening at your belt cleaner at that particular time. On the dashboards or the web-based dashboards, we do use the history of the data, so you can look back and see over the next couple of the previous years how your wear rate is going, when you should be replacing a belt cleaner, and so on and so forth. But the data is stored forever.
Right. So the next question is it helpful to reduce inventory cost, or does it have any application in inventory management?
One of the pain points we put in there was reducing inventory management. If you start to build up a picture of when your belt cleaners are going to be replaced, you'll be able to order, we're hoping eventually to get to a vendor managed inventory system, so that you will literally a little bit like I don't know if you've seen this on Amazon. They used to have little buttons that you can press that tell you when you want to order washing powder or something like that. So that, one of the key pain points, we thought it would reduce inventory hold.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you're replacing when you need it, not just in case. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So another question is again about the application. So can it be used for fabric strength deterioration feedback overuse?
Can it be used to sort of test? Sorry, say that again.
So in case there is any, can it be used to monitor fabric strength?
No, it can't be. We do have a sensor that can manage that can identify rips in conveyor belts, but we don't have. It doesn't measure that. It measures very simply temperature. Okay, so it measures the cleaner's wear rate. It measures its tension. It will also send you an alert for a high temperature, which is largely caused by empty running. So when you're not running your conveyor belt and you've still got the cleaner applied, you end up having empty running, which will mean you'll get increased heat. And that actually can damage the cleaner as well as being a waste of energy. It will also tell you when the cleaner has been knocked off the belt cleaner, so it hasn't been put back, so that it will tell you when it's been pushed away and is no longer doing its job effectively.
Okay. So the next question is, what kind of information about a belt scrapper the device will be able to provide?
I sort of asked that question. Wear, tension, heat. and whether it's applied correctly.
Right, right. And what are the parameters monitored by PI? How would the end result look like?
Well, if we'd be able to show you that on, firstly, one of the slides I had was the app, but also if you contact them, the Martin office in Pune, they'll be able to provide you access to review a sort of draft dashboard so that you can see all the information. We've designed it in a way that customers could add views as long as we're able to. So, you know, again, the dashboards will be specific to a customer. They're not set, they're not generic. So customers would be able to, once they get the handle of it, start saying, well, could I look at that? Could I look at this? And then we can work at seeing whether we can deliver that. We work very closely with Amazon Web Services on this, and we also work closely with two of their certified vendors, Green Custard, that does all the a lot of the dashboard work for us, and the software programming in terms in the cloud. And then we also work with another of their vendors, SI, that is provides a SIM card, a global SIM card. The Internet of Things communicates largely over a number of communication protocols. In some countries, it communicates over 2G. In others, it communicates over something called Cat-M1. And then you've got NB-IoT in some countries. The SIM will determine which communication protocol is being used in which country. So, for example, in my country, in the UK, half of the country is 2G, half of the country is Cat-M1. Then what it will do is, having selected communication protocol, it will select the strongest cell signal with which to communicate on. It then very, very light on data usage, because the PI wakes up every 6 minutes, and the data is then sent either for an alert or over a period of every 6 hours. So you're very light on data. You're not losing a lot of data, which is one of the reasons it can be cost effective.
So just a few more questions. What are the monitoring points that this IoT device will provide for a cleaner?
Monitoring points. What it does is it monitors the angle of the blade to the belt. So that's how it works. So, as well as temperature. So it has a number of that. So that the fundamental monitoring position indicator is in there. Okay, so the chips and all the clever business is in this particular black piece there. And that's also where there is a RF, a radio transmitter that transmits over the frequencies that each country has, which are free to use. Each government sets frequencies, and that will communicate then to the gateway. And the gateway was designed, the other thing is we designed the gateway to take as many sensor units as it possibly could. So we're constantly upgrading that so that a customer doesn't have to keep on installing lots and lots of gateways. It is battery operated. And again, the app will tell you when the battery needs replacing. It's a lithium battery, but it's a normal standard AA battery. It's not, but you need to put a lithium in, and it will tell you when it needs to be replaced. The only thing that needs mains power is the gateway, and we also have a battery in there. If you want, you can install a battery should you get power outages. But to be fair, we looked at this particularly where in countries like in Africa, where you may get blackouts, you may get load shedding, where you get power surges. We've gone through that process in the testing and certification. And to be fair, if everything stopped running, if there's a power shed, if there's no power on the plant, nothing's going to be running. So you don't lose any data, is the point we're trying to say.
So I'll just take the last question now. Can a single IoT be used for multiple scrappers, or does it have any limit?
You can use a single gateway for multiple scrapers. You always have to put a position indicator on. Okay. So there's no choice. You're not going to be this is measuring each blade, which is why we communicate it through to a gateway rather than each individual's. If you did it a process where you had it in each individual PI communicating to the cloud, you're effectively putting a mobile phone on a belt cleaner, which is quite an expensive and probably over-engineered solution.
Okay. On that note, we'll end the session. Thank you so much, Mr. Robert, for joining us today. The session was very informative and interactive indeed. And we look forward to having you at our future conferences, sir.
Thank you very much. It's been great fun and some really good questions and interest. So thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.